A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Mary Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello everybody, it's so lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm really pleased to welcome Moitza Kobi. Lovely to see you, Moitza. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very well, thank you.
It's so lovely to be able to get together with other homeopaths and just talk about homeopathy for 20 minutes. So I know that you practice in London and you've got a lovely clinic and you see lots of people. But what really fascinates me is that you enjoy seeing teenagers and children and people, with difficulties at that young age. Tell me a little bit more about your practice.
So I guess I really enjoy working with young people and children. I've been a full-time mom up to about 10 years ago when I started my homeopathic way. And I just felt very close to their issues because I have been dealing with them since my eldest daughter was born almost 28 years ago. And I just love to listen at the way they see life and how they experience things, and that constant sense of wonder and adventure at how in their experiences in life, and also the possibility of allowing them to deal with their health issues with homeopathy and not using anything that might harm them in some way, while at the same time learning to discover in themselves what works for them, what doesn't help them. It's amazing. It's so nice to watch, and when they get better, it's like you see them flourish, you see that energy come to life, and it's a joy.
Oh wow. Because let's face it, these years can be difficult times, can't they? They can be a lot of friction, there can be a lot of changes going on, there can be a lot of communication issues as they're kind of wanting to experiment and see what life has to offer. And it isn't the easiest time for them in their life.
I agree. I mean, I think they face, well, it's the beginning of life. It's when you have to learn everything. You have to learn to walk, to speak, to write, all of that. And then you also have to learn to relate, and you have to learn to face challenges, and what is your way of overcoming social challenges when you meet new people, or academic challenges when you have to pass exams in order to be able to achieve the next step in your life, wherever you feel you want to go. So, and at each step, our body reacts to that challenge. And depending on what we bring with us in terms of genetics and all of that, we tend to react in one way or the other. And that isn't only on a physical level, it's also on like a mental and emotional level. So and you can really help with homeopathy for those issues.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, what is amazing to me is that you can bring up two children exactly the same, with the same rules, with the same goals, with the same manner, but they are so completely different in character. That conflict occurs either with parents and children or with siblings together. And of course, you know, who is it? Obviously, mum usually is the one who would contact you, who would say that I need to get help for my children or child. What happens then?
So usually moms contact me when they feel they have tried every possible route to resolve an issue and nothing has helped. And then, depending on their own level of experience of homeopathy, they will either ask about homeopathy and how the treatment works and what is to be expected and all of that. Or if they're a bit more familiar, they will want to know how I work, if I'm a classical homeopath, or if I use other tools to help the child. And once that has been cleared up, then they decide whether they want to work with me, whether they feel that I am a person that they feel comfortable speaking with, and then they book in. And then, depending on the age of the child, I tend to speak with both of them at first. I want to hear mom's version of what's going on. But I also want to hear what the child or the teenager has to say, how they feel, how they experience it, because sometimes the stories are quite different.
Yes.
So I want to hear both versions. In some cases, it's important that the child gets a little bit of individual time with me, so that, because sometimes they feel they owe it to the parent to say things in one way or the other.
Yeah.
So sometimes they feel a bit less restricted in sharing with me when they're on their own. But other than that, yeah, and then I always tell them to give it a little bit of time. I always say homeopathy, it's a process, it's not an event. So yeah, it's in the conversation that healing happens.
Okay, I understand. So you're setting the expectations of different things happening.
Yeah.
But of course, you're quite right. Having mum's version of an event is very different than your teenagers and their version, and what is restricting or difficult for them might be difficult, you know, for the parents. But quite often when it's a communication issue, and obviously it takes two to have an argument, doesn't it? What happens then?
How do you mean a communication issue between the mother and the child?
Yeah, so obviously if your child is getting angry when they are told to do chores, for instance, them getting angry usually has a response from a parent. And how the parent responds obviously triggers the child in a different way. So you know, it's that batting of heads. You can give a remedy to one person, but do you find sometimes that actually helping parents react in a different way would be helpful for that communication?
Well, of course, like when in a case like you just mentioned, where the child might get angry or feels maybe pushed around by the parent, that sort of reaction is something that I take into account as a symptom for what remedy might be helpful to them. At the same time, sometimes when I see things like that, when I see that there is a difficulty in the communication between parent and child, I will suggest to the parent if maybe it might be an idea for them to also have their own space with me, so that we can discuss how this difficulty with the child is triggering them and triggering issues for them that they might not even have been aware of before they came to this point in parenting.
Ah, that is so true, isn't it? Because of course, suddenly they might be triggered by something that happened to them as a child, or the way that their parents acted.
Exactly.
So it actually goes back quite deep, doesn't it? Once you start bringing homeopathy into a household, it's starting to affect everybody in that household.
Exactly. If you think about it, it's like a family, it's an organism, it's a body in a way, if you like.
Yeah.
And it has its own vibration. And sometimes one of the members of the family being unwell, it sets the whole system into imbalance. So, and then you start treating the one member of the family, and you will see that then maybe another presents with something else. And so it can be a door into like a family dealing with stuff that that will really help them into achieving a new level of communication, of understanding, of supporting each other, of whatever it is that they achieve.
Yes, of course. I recently have been working with a family, older adults, and of course we get into a habit, don't we, of letting certain things go, and and reacting in a certain way, and then sort of 20 years later you realize, actually I don't want to do this way anymore. I want to change it. But if you change it upsets that apple cart, doesn't it? It upsets that relationship. And so, the whole family is involved.
I also think that many times, like, I don't know, if one of the, like, let's say a child has a health issue, usually the mom is the person taking care of that child the most. And then that is very draining to the mom. So they get into a state of imbalance. They might get colds more often or whatever. So by helping the mom with homeopathy, you strengthen her, and that brings harmony again while that child gets better. So it always...
You're absolutely right. That caring for the carers is paramount, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the different things that you might be helping teenagers with. Is it physical? Is it mostly physical or emotional? Or it probably is that you treat them for everything that happens. But what do they specifically come to you with?
So a lot of teenagers and also children come with skin issues.
Okay.
Skin problems are the most obvious and evident ones.
Yes.
Everybody can see them, and in a lot of children that is an issue because they feel ashamed of looking different, of being weird, or and then being teased by their mates. All of that can be very upsetting. So that's usually why they come. I also have had quite a few cases of insomnia or anxiety, many times linked to changes in the family, like either moving from one country to another, or exams coming up, all sorts of issues that destabilize them deeply. So I would say those are the two main things. But then, like, that's the chronic stuff, and then I also do a lot of everyday support with acute issues like colds, coughs, I don't know, upset stomachs.
And because of course it is such important years, isn't it, where things might be happening around you that you have no control over. So teenagers, if their family is moving home to a different country, even to a different town, it's something that they have absolutely no control over, and certainly don't want to do it. And there isn't going to be another time in life that they don't have any say in that, really. So it is quite traumatic time for them, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting because sometimes it's not only the emotional level that's affected by these moves, but recently I had a case of a family that I started treating the daughter for eczema, and she was doing really, really well. The skin was almost back to perfect, and then they had to move house. And they moved into an area with very bad water quality. And that brought the whole picture back. So then we started treating that level of toxicity that was affecting her, and she is on the right track back to where she was before. But even on that level,
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and of course that could happen to any of us
Exactly.
moving into a different area, couldn't
Yeah.
it? And what they're up against, really. So obviously this is a time of high hormonal change and everything else going on. So do you often see that perhaps symptoms, childhood symptoms, baby symptoms, skin symptoms come back during this time, during puberty?
Yes, definitely. Quite a few of the teenagers I've seen have had eczema as children, and then when they get to puberty, it all comes back. Not always, but it does.
Yes.
And yeah, then you consider that fact in the context of the treatment. But yeah. In cases of girls, there is also like period issues and headaches. Headaches are quite a big thing as well. A lot of young people get headaches from overstudying, late nights, not good sleeping habits, technology, all of that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it makes sense, doesn't it? So let's talk for a moment about your approach when you have somebody coming with a skin issue, perhaps who had a skin issue as a baby. So you're obviously looking at giving something for the skin now and the symptoms now, but perhaps something that actually goes back to those previous years, perhaps a miasmatic remedy.
Yes, it can. It always depends on each individual case, but depending on like when I start treating somebody, I always tend to give the remedy that best fits their symptoms. And that if that remedy helps but then stops, I will probably see at what is making it stop working. So be it this miasmatic tendency or some toxicity or stress from school or whatever, and then we address that and take it into context and give them the right remedy for that situation. So and usually it's like their general health gets better and they get stronger while they work through those chronic symptoms that they have. For example, I treated a teenager. She came to me with eczema that had come back after she went into puberty. And she was also getting one tonsillitis after the other, taking lots of antibiotics, while also doing her A-levels.
Okay.
And it was like she was either sick or studying.
Yeah.
And to like the cherry on the cake was this constant itching. And basically I helped her with the itchiness, but at the same time I was treating the acutes when they appeared. And then we addressed the miasmatic tendency and the original supposed cause of the eczema, which had been the first move from one country to another when she was 4 months old. So we worked together for about 2 years until she finished her A-levels, and she was a lot stronger, didn't get any more respiratory problems. Her eczema was under control, and she decided to stop working because she felt she was okay. She knew what helped her, and we parted ways with her. She had her homeopathic kit and said, if I need you, I'll get in touch. And she knew how to use it. So I felt really happy for her to have gotten to that place.
Yes, yeah, that's what's so amazing, isn't it? That we're actually helping people take back responsibility of their own health and then therefore taking it forward. But in that case there, you mentioned miasmatic, so that's addressing the inherited susceptibilities. You mentioned the trauma of moving as a young child as well. So obviously that's social behavior and what's happening there, and then studying working the whole time, and the pressure, that must be anxiety and a lot of things happening with expectations of what she wants out of life, what other people are expecting her to do. Tonsillitis, itchy skin, so much going on there to take care of. But what you said was, we worked together for 2 years, and 2 years is quite a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is what people really sometimes forget, that homeopathy is so different than mainstream medicine, because we are not putting a plaster over something. We are not just hoping that the symptom will go away. We are actually going much, much deeper, building that resilience.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And I think it's also important. So as you say, you're building resilience and you're working a lot deeper, and you're not just as you said, putting a plaster on. But I find that what we also try to do, at least many other homeopaths I know, is trying to bring awareness to people that medication sometimes is necessary, but you need to be aware that it's not like M&Ms that you can just take. You need to take it responsibly, and when it's really, really necessary, because otherwise it can also cause harm. So maybe if you're taking homeopathy on the one side, but then also taking a lot of, I don't know, paracetamol or stuff like that, then you might be challenging that process in a way.
Yes, of course. But just having the conversation, or several conversations about the effects of everything. You've mentioned the effects of the water when they moved house, the effects of medications, the effects of everything that we do in our environment. We're talking more and more about allergies from the environment. We don't know, do we, what's in the water? We don't know what's in the air. We don't know, the numerous pollen, everything, and is that affected by the chemicals that they're spraying on the crops, or are we being affected by the food that we're eating because of what they've put on it to make it last longer? So much is changing with our environment every day. It's almost like we have to delve in to find what could possibly be the cause of this, isn't it? Why is it that your body's reacting this way? So we can understand why the journey is longer. It's not a quick fix. It's not something that's going to make the symptom go away, because what we're actually trying to achieve is to get to the bottom of it and teach your body how to react in a different way. Both physically and emotionally as well.
Yes, somehow it's interesting, because what I find is that homeopathy does bring you an awareness that if you're speaking about like mental, emotional issues, you, like when you go into a talking therapy, like psychological therapy, you rationalize everything and you explain and you think about it. But homeopathy brings you awareness on those kinds of topics from a different level that I can't really explain, but I have experienced it, and it's amazing. It's like having an upgrade of your operating system. It's like, and it's so good. And when that's why I think it's so helpful for teenagers to help them with homeopathy, because they find it inside of themselves what the answer is. For example, another case that I'm working on at the moment is a girl who has a very difficult chronic condition, and at the same time as that, she also had horrible insecurity, felt very unloved by her family and her friends at school and everything. And through the work together and the remedies, she was able to see that she in herself is perfect and there is no flaw in her. And she found the strength to say, I don't care anymore if these people care for me or not, or if they speak with me or not. I am important to myself. And the whole situation, even the physical situation, changed. So yes, it's amazing to watch.
Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And unexpected sometimes then as well. That actually, yes, what homeopathy does and the parts that it affects
Yeah.
are just huge, aren't they, for everybody?
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm really lucky to be doing this work. To have found homeopathy was a blessing to me.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I'm happy to be able to share it with others.
It's so lovely to talk to you, Moitza. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming and sharing your experiencing and just explaining the approach really, because it is so gentle and so effective that all we want is more people to realize how it can be
Yeah,
helping people.
definitely.
Thank
Thank you, Mary, for having me. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you so much, Moitza, for spending the time with us and explaining how homeopathy can be so useful during those changing years of teenagers. And so interesting listening to you and enjoying working with children and teenagers. Fantastic. Fantastic to hear your cases and how you are working with young people. Now, next week, I will be telling you a little bit more about living on an island, living the homeopathic life, actually, not virtually. So I'm just going to share with you, we've been here for 3 months now, so I'm just going to share with you some of those experiences that I'm finding living in a great community. I hope you can join me, and I look forward to seeing you then. I do hope you've enjoyed these episodes, and I do hope you can subscribe to our channels. Now, there are various ways for you to listen to our podcast or watch it on video on YouTube. So whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, please do subscribe and please do leave us a review. If you leave us a review on these platforms, then more people will see our podcast. We just want more people to share the joy of homeopathy. It's a choice that everybody should know about. Please do everything you can to help us help more people.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.